This is possibly the weirdest, but at least the most interesting phone of the year so far. This is LG Wing. You know how I know it's the most interesting phone of the year so far? I made a TikTok about this phone, and a day after I posted it, it has 16 million views, which there's not a lot of devices that get like extra talk outside of the normal tech bubble. This is one of them. And if there's one thing I know about LG, it's that they don't really follow in anyone's footsteps, at least in the smartphone world, very often. And so they don't really copy anything. They do it their own way. And for better or for worse, they have a habit of making things that make you go, huh, I never really thought about that. So now there's this. They're calling it the world's first 5G swiveling smartphone. I don't know that they have to put that many qualifiers on it. I think it's pretty clear that this is one of a kind. But here's the idea. It looks, when it's closed, like a normal smartphone, because it kind of just is. There's an in-display fingerprint reader. When it turns on, you got a full 6.8-inch full HD OLED display. It's a little curved over the edges too. You've got your volume and power buttons on the side, and around the back with the triple cameras, it actually kind of looks like a Galaxy Note 20 or something. This is probably the most familiar part of the design. And there's USB Type-C at the bottom, no headphone jack, metal all the way around the sides. Pretty normal. Like, you can see it looking like any other Android phone. It is a bit heavier than normal though, and a little thicker than a typical phone. But yeah, it does its thing. LG calls this basic mode. And most people, if they saw this in public, would never think twice about it. But then there's swivel mode. You can kind of get used to doing it with one hand if you practice it enough times, but basically you just take the bottom corner of the display and just flick it up over the top. And this whole giant screen swivels up 90 degrees and just sort of slaps into place. And there's actually even a little soft close action. There's a hydraulic dampener inside the phone for that soft close. And of course, that's revealing an additional nearly square 3.9-inch OLED display underneath. So now you've got yourself basically a T-shaped phone. Okay, so a couple things about this swiveling thing. One is it's a one-handed action to open, which is pretty sweet. But it's pretty much always going to be a two-handed action to close. Like, no matter how big your hands are, you can't really... I guess you could, but it's not going to be comfortable. So, two-handed action to close the phone. And then the sound it makes reminds me... That reminds me of like the Sidekick days when you'd slide phones all the time. It might not be as satisfying as like slapping a flip phone shut, but that's pretty sweet, not going to lie. And then number 3, there's an interesting little pattern on the back of the phone here, and you can only see it when it's swiveled out. Not sure what you would call that, but it's a cool touch since technically you never have to look at the back of the phone. And actually, in general, I think the build quality seems really well thought out overall. There's a slight raised edge over the whole back screen, so less dust or dirt can get in there and then rub against the screen as it closes. And even the parts of the body that you see behind the display as you slowly can swivel it are mostly all just metal. And also, fun fact, this earpiece you see up here at the top is the only one on the phone, which means when you swivel it closed, it should be blocked. But this here is actually literally just a pass-through cutout, so the sound can make it to your ear when the phone is closed. And then when you close the phone, you also block the whole top bezel area back here. And there is no room up here for a selfie camera in this thin swiveling panel. So that's why this phone also has a motorized pop-up selfie camera, as if there weren't enough moving parts on the LG Wing. So it's a lot. But once we get over the holy crap, it flips open thing, you might have a couple questions. The first one might be, wait a second, is that the phone from that first Iron Man movie where he's running through the desert from those explosions and then pulls a phone out? The answer is actually no. It's close, but that is also an LG phone. And then 2, like, why though? Like, why would you actually want a phone to do this? Why did LG make a phone that's able to swivel? What's the point here? And the answer is actually in a lot of the use cases built into the software. So first of all, when you go into swivel mode, it's just opening basically this launcher that's a carousel of apps that support swivel mode. Now you can still use that bottom screen kind of however you want, like a tiny square smartphone, but this is where the swivel mode experience really begins. Then there's 2 ways that the screens really work together. LG calls them A plus A or A plus B. A plus A is like where you have a main screen content and then some additional content on the bottom screen that's either controlled or connected to the top. And then A plus B is just straight up multitasking. So A plus A stuff is pretty straightforward. Like supported apps like YouTube here will let you control the video or change brightness or skip forward or backward from the controls on the bottom display. Kind of useful, but that's not something crazy I couldn't do with 1 or 2 taps on a normal phone before. But there's also things like gallery view at the bottom screen with full screen photos on the top screen. Or if you're watching a video or something and get a call or a text, it pops up on the bottom screen, doesn't interrupt you. And of course, there's also big screen typing. So you flip it upside down and leave the window for whatever messaging you're doing at the top and use the whole bottom screen as your keyboard, like full screen or split screen. But A plus B is, I think, where it gets way more interesting because now it's really just any 2 apps at once. And so it's up to you to think of the 2 apps you want. So maybe it's watching a video on the main screen and texting or messaging someone on the second screen at the bottom. Or there could be, let's say, email on one screen and web browsing on the other screen, or news and stocks, one on the big screen, one on the other. Maybe it's a video call on the top and taking notes at the bottom. But then of course you can't forget with rotation, the possibilities expand a lot. So we're used to holding it like the normal T, but of course it responds to orientation change. And then the gears start turning a little bit. So now you can imagine it can be in a car mount docked sideways, so navigation on the main screen with music on the second screen. Or you can hold it upside down with the auxiliary info at the top. Like I said, it gets pretty extensive, the types of stuff you can do with 2 screens. Now, some combinations make more sense than others. Like I can see texting and watching a video, that's something I actually have wanted to do all the time. Or maybe even email on one screen with notes on the other, sure. But the whole navigation on one screen, but music on the other screen, like they show this example a lot in their commercials, but I feel like I never really need a second screen for my music. Like it's music, it's playing in the background, it's fine. So I don't know, some of them are very reasonable, and then a lot of the others feel a little bit more like a stretch. Now, if you find some combinations you really do like though, of course you can pair 2 apps together and then open them at the same time with a single click. They're called multi-app shortcuts, and you can even choose which ones come up on the big screen and which ones come up on the small screen, and then drop that one on your home page, and you're set. The key, though, with any new form factor type thing like this is, as we know, the software has to play nice. It's not just about a cool swiveling piece of hardware, although that's pretty sweet, but it has to actually work its way into support. So dual screen support is being built into Android. Now we're starting to see folding screens work a little bit better. This also needs that same treatment. LG's best showcase of this treatment, in my opinion, is some really cool AA stuff, like Asphalt, the driving game, showing the map on the small screen while you can concentrate mostly on the game on the main screen while you just check the map with a glance once in a while. That is super cool. And it's gonna be up to developers to come up with other super cool versions of support like this, but it is super rare right now since this phone is just coming out, and most apps don't have this level of well thought out integration with the Wing. Matter of fact, you actually have to go into the settings and check which apps you want to even show up on the second screen in the first place, because by default, most don't. But yeah, software support is still in an early, fringy stage with this stuff. Oh, and all of that's not even to mention the additional trick this phone has up its sleeve, which is gimbal mode with this camera. So you remember I talked about the camera for a second. This is a bit of an unconventional camera layout. So it's a 64 megapixel main camera, a 12 megapixel ultra wide, and then another 13 megapixel ultra wide for gimbal mode. So if you swivel open the phone and launch the camera, the top screen is your viewfinder and leveler, and the second screen is now all your controls for that gimbal camera, including a joystick that lets you pan and scan all the way around the stabilized ultra wide frame. Kind of like if you had a camera in a real gimbal. Now it's not physically moving around any lens elements or any hardware or anything crazy like that, but it is a pretty cool example of how now the phone is the perfect shape where you can hold the bottom part like a gimbal. There's different modes, there's first person, there's pan follow, or just regular follow, which stabilize different axes. It's definitely a nifty tool, and it's really well done, even though I would probably almost never actually use it. But really what it's best for is it's another one of those dual screen AA apps that I was talking about, which is awesome for demonstrating the power of this form factor. So there you have it. It's the LG Wing, it's the swiveling smartphone. Now you know the what and the why. It's $1,000 bucks, so it's definitely steep for a phone with a Snapdragon 765G and a 60 hertz display, but it does have a lot of other stuff going for it. It has wireless charging, it has a good build, no water resistance, obviously. But my final thoughts as I'm playing with this phone is like, do I think I could use this form factor as my daily phone? Could I use this LG Wing daily? And I think my answer, I mean, yeah, I could, but I think the 60 hertz would wear on me. And I think if you see this animation speed, how slow that is, I think just the general catching up that the software has to do with how cool this could be is what would hold me back from using it every day. But I'm interested in what a second generation of this would look like, and just in general, what else would come out of this LG Explorer program, because, well, that's a hell of a start. Either way, that's been it. Thanks for watching. Catch you guys later. So big shout out to Audible for sponsoring this video. So Audible is the leading provider of audiobooks and spoken word entertainment, anywhere from bestsellers to podcasts to the latest from the world of tech. And fun fact, Audible members get 1 free credit every month to use on anything in the premium library, regardless of price, to keep for free. That's pretty sweet. And members also get access to their growing Plus catalog, which again has tons of stuff, originals, audiobooks, podcasts, and more. So right now I'm listening to Irresistible, The Rise of Addictive Technology and the Business of Keeping Us Hooked by Adam Alter, a professor at NYU. And he's been tracking the rise of behavioral addiction for years and does a really good job in the book of explaining how the tech and the stuff we use today is designed to be basically irresistible. But yeah, there's a listen for pretty much everyone. I've gone through the biography of Elon Musk by Ashley Vance. I've gone through Barack Obama's book. I'm about to go through Michelle Obama's book. So if you want to get into Audible or give it as a gift, which you can also do, you can get started with a free 30-day trial if you just go to audible.com/mkbhd, or you can text mkbhd to 500-500. So again, that's audible.com/mkbhd, or you can text mkbhd to 500-500, and that's your free 30-day trial to get started. Thanks again to Audible for sponsoring this video. Catch you guys in the next one.